And we are live. My name's JP Berg, and this is Dumb the Wiser. Today, as you could see, we have our guest joining us, Canada Polly, aka Mark. How you doing, Mark?
Doing well, John. Nice to be on. Thanks for inviting me. I'm also streaming to my audience as well. I hope that's okay. I've got your
Absolutely.
show name on there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I'm
Perfect.
all for it. Yeah, it's good to finally meet you. I've been watching your content for a while. We've both been following each other on X, and it's like I say with Canada these days, man. It's like you get psyop fatigue trying to interpret it all, and you
It's
never
true.
get any stable ground to stand on conceptually to where you have confidence or certitude. And that's what I really like about you, the way you do your show, is you always make sure to qualify it as like, this is my speculation or as conjecture, as to not feign certitude in this moment. But how long were you doing this now for, Mark?
I started in 2018. It's been a long haul. I can't believe that it's been what 8 years, almost 9 years, which is crazy town. And I was way more popular in 2018. Way more popular. Like I was growing like crazy. My channel went from zero to almost 10,000, like super fast. And then my growth just died, and now I have negative growth on YouTube because I talk about things the way you talk about things, and the way some people are talking about things. In that, I am not going to accept the government's story because the government just keeps lying since COVID. Right? I was doing like the whole premise of my show in 2018 was I missed Stephen Colbert. And it's unfortunate what happened to Stephen Colbert because he became one of the worst shills I've ever seen, and he was terrible. Like he wasn't even a funny shill. I've seen some people who are funny, and you're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. But Colbert pretended to be a right wing guy, and then went so far left wing that it was unbelievable. But when he was doing the Colbert Report, I thought he was the funniest guy on television. I thought he was one of the people who was holding the administration in the United States to account in a way that nobody else could. And so, and the whole basic premise of those shows, The Daily Show and The Colbert Report, were basically this is this person in the government. This is their job. Can you fucking believe this? Can you believe that they're doing this to everybody? Like, and that was the joke line. That was the punchline, basically, right? Like they take you through, like, oh, this is a guy whose only job is to govern bridges. Here's the New Jersey bridge that he's closed down for the next 6 months. Like, and you're just like, what? Like, how does this even make sense? And so I thought Canada's got this ridiculous slapstick cast of characters that I can easily make fun of every day. Why doesn't somebody do this in Canada? And I started listening to podcasts, and they were all terrible. Like, they were all terrible. They were so wonky, and they were all up their own nose about everything. Like, they were the best thing since sliced bread, and their take was the best on Canadian politics. I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. And so I started lambasting them. I called Justin Trudeau potato-headed Justin Trudeau because Chrystia Freeland came in and said the Chinese have a nickname for Justin, Little Potato, and she was like, and she said it in such a ridiculous way. I was like, this is a barrel of laughs, man. This is hilarious. And so it's been that since, and then we ran into COVID, and I was like, okay, well, COVID is what it is. And I called it out, and I was like, I don't believe. At first, I was like, why isn't the government dealing with this? Like, clearly China is having some kind of issue, and we're importing a ton of Chinese into Canada, and there's no check or balance or anything like that. People who are coughing and sneezing are walking into the country, and little did I know that the real problem was walking into the country, not the coughing and the sneezing. And so I was worried about the Chinese stuff, or I was worried about illness coming into the country when the government seemed like it was lackadaisical about health and safety. And then the government was like, you know what, we will keep you safe with lockdowns. And I was like, oh, that seems weird on what was the day? St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day in Ontario, they locked down the world. And I was like, that's weird. And by the summertime, I was done. I was like, no, there's no way this is going to happen. And they tried to make it happen. And I just sat there and I was like, you shouldn't take those experimental things that they're pushing because they're experimental and there's no way they can be safe and effective. So the government hated me, and they hate me more now. And I refused to stop. And so they're trying to pass legislation to stop people like me and you from being able to be, like, I call it skeptical eyebrows, because, like, again, the whole show's intent was to just lambaste and laugh at the ridiculousness of government, because the government is ridiculous. And they're so mad that instead of changing their ridiculous, stupid policies or their stupid people, they're like, you know what we'll do? We'll change the laws to stop these people from criticizing us. So
It's
welcome to North
the
Korea.
yeah, it's the modus operandi of
Yeah.
authoritarianism, right?
Yeah.
Once they say the comedians are the canaries in the coal mines
Yeah. Yeah.
for this sort of thing. But I mean, I'm like you, but my awakening wasn't as abrupt as yours. I didn't start really waking up until COVID. I was one of the people that were sleeping, man. I can't even attribute it to a different word. I was asleep. I wasn't paying attention.
Mhm.
COVID rocked me, seeing what they were capable of doing. What really rocked me watching it was the mass formation with the people, watching how easily and how malleable the masses were to just respond to this stimuli.
Mhm.
That was frightening. That watching that go down and just feeling that in different rooms and just experiencing COVID, like that, it really got me awake entirely. And I started looking at this thing.
Yep.
So I stumbled onto X about 2 years ago, as naive as could be. I'm coming on here. I'm arguing with the bots, man. Like, I'm thinking everyone's real. I'm having
Yep.
these intense arguments with these AI bots for probably the first year. But I found myself in a cycle, Mark, where I was culture war grifting. I didn't know I was. I lean kind of to the right, and I came on here and I was responding with what I thought was logic to all these absurdities.
Mhm.
But then I realized, like, about a year into this, probably about a year ago now, like I'm really just fueling these reactive rage cycles in this algorithm.
I'm
And
worried
that
about that too.
100%, man. It's good to be aware of that, especially now, because you could see the ramifications of it. Everything's just hyper polarized. Every little event that happens in Canada, they want to frame it right versus left.
The ostriches.
They want us locked in it. The ostriches was the biggest one. It's like
Huge.
classic Penn and Teller misdirection. What's super emotional, what's going to get Canadians really up in arms and distracted from the bills that are going through? The ostrich situation, right?
Yep. And they bring it front and center, and they send a whole bunch of people to cover it. Like Rebel was there, Dacey was there, everybody was there. It was the most important story during budget time.
That's right.
I don't know, man. Skeptical eyebrows coming out. I don't think so.
I thought the same thing right away, and it's the perfect topic for them because it kind of hypes up the polarization again. You got all the lefties comparing it to KFC, and then you got people on the right that see it what it is, like a property rights issue. And I'm not trying to trivialize this. This sucks. The government doing that is crazy. It should scare everyone. But there's no way that, like you said, the budget and also all these bills they're trying to pass, there's some like just transformative legislation that they're endeavoring to pass.
Not in a good way. Yeah.
No, it's 12 bills and not one of them help Canadians. They're all to consolidate and centralize power. That's the theme of this administration. I call it the regime.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on all of this?
It's funny. You were talking about how you woke up in 2020 during COVID and being in rooms and like feeling that pressure and stuff. I woke up, so I worked in children's mental health before I worked in what I do now, which is internet stuff. And I was very well versed in abuse and like that's the world I grew up. I went to school for that. I worked 15 years in children's mental health. And so when Pizzagate broke, I was like, holy shitballs. Like, this is as real as it gets. Like, this was like my textbooks splashed all over social media, and I couldn't believe it. And I told people, I was like, this is a big deal. And they laughed at me, and I was like, oh, okay. And then when, like, that was about the same time as the Hillary Clinton, Trump, and the only people who were making sense were people on the side of Trump at that point in time. And so my friends were not happy with that. And I was like, well, I don't care. I don't care. And so that kind of pressure was already in the room. There was already the stench of that kind of political pressure. But again, as you said, a lot of people could just look past it, right? Most people don't have my history in children's mental health. Most people don't know the markers and looking at all of that stuff. And then they censored it to crap, right? So they made fun of it. They made fun of anybody who looked at it and thought, well, this is pretty serious. And then they just removed it. And so moving forward, it's like when that happened and I had to deal with that, and it was not very many people having to go through that. And then COVID, that was an echo, kind of the same. It was a very similar thing. It was like, oh man, I am on the other side of that. I'm not wearing a mask and everybody in here is wearing a mask and I'm not going to wear a mask. And I think it's a really interesting, we're moving forward and they're using the same modus operandi that they used against Trump supporters in 2015. Pizzagate people who were concerned about that in 2015, 16, during 2020 COVID. They other the people. Anybody who's got a concern. Oh, you don't care about the ostriches, but you care about the budget? Oh, okay, Poindexter, you stupid idiot, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, the pundits get in on it. Even the secondary pundits, Ben Mulrooney. So I'll point out, there are CBC reporters, what's his name, Travis? Is it Travis? The one recent one, who are moving online because CBC is being mean to them. Bullshit. And so they're trying to gain credibility with the people who would never watch CBC, but watch the enemies of the CBC, right? And Mockingbird Media, which was embedded in the news to make sure the news is a program just like all the other programs, right? All the other Peppa Pigs that have two moms and all the other stuff. It programs your brain because you think in a certain way, because you apply a certain frame, the frame that the news wants to apply. All of that moved from the mainstream media networks to the popular pundits now. So there are, during the election, the pleb was a conservative guy. There were a whole bunch of people who were conservative people. And if you said, why don't the conservatives work with the PPC the way the liberals work with the NDP? Why don't they, there's a little bit of give and take. There's a little bit of respect thrown that way. And you can have maybe an ally who you can negotiate with and maybe take some territory with that. And they will not entertain that idea whatsoever. And I mean, I want to preempt all of this with, I don't think our elections, I don't believe in any of the institutions in Canada at all, not our police, not our justice, not our elections, not our parliamentarians, not our provincial parliamentarians, not our municipal leaders, nobody, not one. When did the CCP take over, the Chinese Communist Party take over Toronto? They're raising the Palestinian flag and what's her face? The mayor is dancing around like an idiot.
Olivia Chow.
Yeah. So I don't believe in any of the institutions. So I don't think that voting is going to fix this. I think that removing everybody and putting everybody who's currently in power in jail and trying to sort out what the F they've done for the last 10 years, that might be a solution. But then we have to deal with when Bolsonaro was removed from Brazil, they had millions of people in the streets and Lula still won. There's a globalist regime that's above the national level, that's above the Canadian national level. If we were able to remove all of our politicians, there would be a globalist like Independence Day, and they just come and nuke our economy. They'd just be like, Canadians, if you can't make it, you're not getting it. You're not going to have vegetables from Mexico. You're not going to have products from America. You're not going to have products from Europe. You're not going to have products from anybody. You're Nazis, and that's that. And that's what they'll say if we try and stop the globalist, whatever, even if we had control of Canada. So
I honestly, man, I see it exactly the same way. If anyone who's familiar with my content just heard what you just said, they're like, yeah, we're gonna have a good conversation. I see it with the programming. It's ideological subversion, Yuri Bezmenov style. I'm sure you're familiar with this gentleman. But that's what's happening. We've been programmed to accept these very fallacious conceptual framings. They attack the family unit. They attack masculinity.
Yes.
The whole feminist, all of that, the detrimental effects of the feminist movement are all
the feminist stuff. I talk about the feminist stuff sometimes, and I get pushback from women, and I don't mean I don't mean to sound insulting to women. That's not my point. But I can't believe that how did you sell to a bunch of women who were managing households in the 1950s and the 1960s and somewhat into the 70s that doing housework isn't real work? It doesn't really need to get done. Go out and work for another man and give half of your production to the government. This sounds like a great idea. What? And it was inches they got there, right? And now that's feminism, and it's such bullshit. I wish we had a society where a single income was the income that was all you needed to have a house and a cottage and 2 cars, vacations, food, cigarettes, all of the things that you need to get through. Cigarettes is top of the list. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like the way to fix things as soon as maybe not every, I'm generalizing here. So if you're not a woman who fits into this particular generalization, my apologies, but I'll say it anyway. Most of the time when a family is started, when a man and a woman have a baby, the woman is very interested in the baby. They want to do what is necessary to make sure that baby thrives and is a very, very effective baby and all the way into toddler and childhood and adolescence and so on. They want that kid to be the best. They don't care really about their corporation. They care about their job in so much as it provides for their family, which provides for their child to grow and thrive. If they didn't have to go to work, I think they would choose, I think my speculation is that they would choose to stay home and help their family be as good as possible. And like, that means, putting together the Christmas pageant at church. That means meeting with teachers, supporting the classroom, and making sure that your kid is doing everything that is necessary for them to thrive. I think that's a better way to structure things, rather than handing your kid off to the state to be told that men can be women and don't you like this gender ideological flag, right? Selling them this product that is nonsense that breaks up the nuclear family, right? Like, it's so insidious, and I get worried because we can't see the prison that we're gleefully made for ourselves, but we keep making for ourselves as well. Like, we're allowing all of this shit to happen. I don't know why, but we are.
Again, I couldn't agree more with all of that. And the point you made at the end was one of the biggest objectives. What this accomplished was not just women entering the workforce to double productivity amongst the wage slaves, but it also ensured the state got unfettered access to your children.
Yep.
And at the same time they were rolling out mass media, you started to see the sitcoms flip in the 1960s. It went from Leave It to Beaver,
Father Knows
Best, right into like Archie Bunker and all of these non-traditional roles.
Archie Bunker was designed to destroy the father. So Archie Bunker was the butt of the jokes, right? He was the idiot.
Absolutely.
He was the idiot racist. There was an famous episode where Archie gets London, Ontario and London, England mixed up, and he sends his factories like a pallet of like 2,000. It was an expensive mistake, right? He sends it to London, Ontario instead of London, England. And he's supposed to be this idiot, right? And so this was the permission to start, well, what we saw in the 80s and 90s with latchkey kids, behavioral issues, sergeants on, what was that talk show? Sally Jesse Raphael, right? Bring in the bad kids. We'll lock them up and we'll scare them straight. How about you give them a loving mother and a loving father? And the loving mother is there to support, and the loving father is there to make sure that man grows up to become a man, right? Yes, is supported. Yes, is known that he's loved and all the rest, but grows up strong and able to stand up for himself and has a spine. And you know what I mean? Like, instead of scaring the kids straight with Sally Jesse Raphael content, we could have just helped the kids be stable in their family, and then maybe they wouldn't act out, right? Like, if the first time, I wouldn't think of swearing at my parents, right? It wouldn't be something that came into my realm of possibility when I was a child. And yet, I worked in children's mental health, and I've met parents who say they don't understand why their kids are acting the way they're acting, but then I guess they don't own a mirror or something. Like, your kids are a mirror into how you behave yourself. And the number of people who don't understand that is just unbelievable. Too damn high.
It's funny, man, where you mention where we were mentioning Archie Bunker, Richard Nixon, he recorded most of his conversations in the Oval Office.
Smart guy.
And some of the stuff that was declassified, it was him talking to one of his White House aides, very famously. And he said, I watched this movie last night. And the White House aide knew what he was referencing. He's like, no, sir, that's not a movie. It's a show. It's like a weekly program. And he's like, well, regardless, it had this hard head. And that's what he called like a working class guy. I guess that was the nomenclature in the 60s or the 70s. And he says, and they had the hippie son-in-law winning all the arguments. They make him look like an idiot. We can't have that. And then he was also referencing that it's normalizing homosexuality. And then he says, that's what happened to the Greeks. And I just thought that reference was so funny, man. When you hear this clip in context, but Nixon's seen the potentiality for this programming to be very detrimental broadly, and that's what happened. So it was a multi-pronged attack on Western man, because at the same time feminism was kicking off and women were entering the workforce, then the state again has unfettered access to your children, and all of this programming's coming from centralized bodies, right?
Yeah,
it's phenomenal, man.
Bringing women into the workforce. Stop me if I'm wrong here, and I'm not a money guy, so I apologize. I say this a lot on my show, but doesn't if you bring women into the workforce, that adds a lot of money to the overall pot of money. This is increasing the amount of money in circulation, but all of the amounts of products is the same, right? Which is the recipe for inflation. So they damn well knew that bringing women into the workforce would make everything more expensive, forcing other women. So like if you have a percentage, 10% of the population, 10% of women in the population going to work, that's going to increase prices enough so that maybe 12 or 15% of the women go to work. And that is in turn going to increase prices enough so that maybe 20% of women go to work because they need it to stay afloat. And then that's going to in turn, right? It's a poison pill that will never end, right? And it's a Ponzi. I think the whole economy is a Ponzi scheme. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, we're debt-ridden wage slaves. We have
Yes.
a usury-based system. We've let an elite group of people create wealth out of thin air and then loan it to our nations at an interest rate. And I mean, they're not nations. They're more akin to commerce districts. You know what I mean? The laws of commerce are different, but I mean, I believe in the West, it's just run, man. Putin has said since the 90s, and he said this to his people, he said this in many speeches, he said, the president of the United States is a show for the people. And the deep state, the CIA is what he would usually reference it. They run America's and the West geopolitical decisions.
Well, they want to run it for hedge money. They want to run it for single, like they want to, the excuse for why they do what they do. Because like the CIA, you're never out of the CIA. And if you're a CIA director, you're a CIA director for like the rest of your life, right? But like if you're in the CIA, you're 10 years as it's an appointed post, right? And it's 10 years generally in it. So, whereas a president gets 8 if they're lucky with two terms back to back, right? And so like I think there's a lot to that, except that the CIA are just capos of the bigger cabal, because like the world is run like a mafia, I think, like, and the States and stuff are run like a mafia. So you've got the top families at the top, the group of 300, the 12, whatever ones you want. And then underneath them are the people they've put in place to run each country and things like that. And then the production, because they take 60% of our production or something like that in taxes, right? So we make 100%, they take 60, we live off 40, they live off our 60, and that's still not enough. And they want to keep the grift going. And so the other thing is we live in, so I know in 1913 the creation of the Fed happened, and that changed the direction of kind of the world, right? And then 1914 World War I, and then 1915 or 1944, 1939 World War II. So we live now in a reset, right? So like our history kind of starts after World War II. World War II is like the origin story for this reset. And so we're riding the fumes of that because the morality and all of that other stuff has been perverted so much. But that's like the cutoff, except 1913 and the First World War still play into that. But it's like a Kickstarter campaign. So do you know what a world order is? A new world order or a world order?
Yeah, I'm familiar with everything you're discussing. I'm actually a big fan of Martyr Maid, who's expressed a lot of this. It's he's a historian. He's a popular historian.
Okay.
He's done a series regarding Germany's war from the Germans' perspective.
Yep. Super
groundbreaking. And I assumed you were familiar.
No, I've never heard of him.
Because he said that exact same thing. He says World War II is the origin myth for Western.
That's what
so much so, Mark, that when you say when people want to equate something, they don't even use religious terminology. They'll equate you to Hitler before they'll equate you to Lucifer. Right. So, I mean,
but anybody who's, yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh man, we could go down that rabbit hole. That's another rabbit hole. But yeah, no, I didn't know anything about the person that you referenced. So I'll have to have a listen. Like, I'm very interested in hearing kind of more fleshed out kind of theories around this, but they keep, so 1913 was economically, they changed the math of everything. Before 1913, there was another world order in place, and it was, I think Wilhelm was the guy who was holding Europe together, and he ceded all of Europe. All the kings and queens of Europe were related to him too. And so he ruled them with an iron fist, using family, mafia, again, as a balance, a check and balance. When Wilhelm died, the fumes of that world order would last until when Victoria died, like the queen who just died now, right? Those fumes last. That power structure stays in place, but Wilhelm's no longer in charge. That power vacuum is the end of a world order. And to create a new world order, they need to cede or Europe or wherever they're trying, which is now the world, with their own brethren, people they control. And in this case, it's people who have done things that make them easy to control, and they put them in positions of power. And so that's an establishment of a world order. When they have people who are young, who are going, well, young, not necessarily, but who can have a long tenure, right? So think Trudeau, Macron, all these people who were, Lula, all these people who were put in place. It was establishment of a world order because the cabal has control of the people in charge of the states, just like Wilhelm had control of the people all across Europe, and he ruled it with an iron fist. He said, like, this is how it's going to be, and that's it, because you're related, and I'm gonna make it so. And like, you're not going to go to war with your cousin. It's not happening, right? In the same way, the cabal rules these guys and says, like, listen, you're not going to do this, or Monica Lewinsky's going to come out of the Oval Office with a bit of stuff on her dress, okay? So, like, you see how this works? It's just control, different kind of control, but it's the same control.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And when you look at the history of it, is it Wilhelm or Franz Ferdinand you're thinking of?
Franz Ferdinand was the trigger for the First World.
Yeah, okay.
No, but it was I think it's Wilhelm. He's he's in Civilization. He's one of the big leaders, but he was the one who was in charge of like from the 1870s or 80s or something like that to the 1910s when he died, or I think it was 1900, 1910, around there. But when he died, that was the trigger. That was the end of that world order, because he was in charge of that world order. And then as I said, the fumes, because there's a lot of power still. Like, those kings and queens are kings and queens, and not in their own right. They've all forgotten who put them there, but they believe the story. You know what I mean? And so they'll act that way. So the fumes of that world order last for a while until something else is established. And we're watching that something else be established right now.
Well, when you get into, I recently read, and I read this book 3 times. It's a summation of a famous book called Tragedy and Hope by Carroll Quigley. Carroll Quigley was a historian in the 60s, and he was apparently, the myth is he was granted access to a lot of documents that no one else was. He came out of Yale and academia, and he respected this world order. But he refers to it as the Anglo-American Alliance. He goes as far back to the Boer War in 1897, and he says, like, he gets into characters like Milner and Rhodes, and they were starting to set up like the post-British empire to really control things behind the scenes with what Carroll Quigley's terminology was the network. And he describes it almost very similar to you. There's the top of this hierarchy, then there's their cohorts, the face of power. I frequently say, with what's going on in the West now, we're watching the factionalization of the post-World War II order, and we're watching these big factionalized parts of it kind of go to war with each other a little bit, and they're leveraging public sentiment against one another. That's my impression of it. And what I often say is the most pertinent conversations that are occurring relative to the Western democracies, they're occurring in rooms far away from public scrutiny by people that you and I likely wouldn't even recognize. Mm-hmm. I really believe that, man.
Yeah, well, yeah. What's being done is being decided and then being downloaded. Like, it's very top down. Like, this is not. I say on my show a lot, and I say it because my show is meant to be accessible. It's meant to be funny. Like, I'm joking, right? Most of the time, I'm laughing my ass off, and the reason for that is sobbing with Mark is just, it's not that entertaining. But like, what's going on is the distraction is the show that, and like I said earlier, I worry that I'm participating in it because I'm outlining the show instead of going after the seat of power. And the seat of power is, as you said, it's arm's length away. They don't want any kind of scrutiny. They don't want me talking about them. If I'm talking about them, their capos haven't done their job, and their capos will get fired. And Trudeau left. I think Trudeau got fired because he was ineffective. He wasn't able to counter Canadians saying no. Whereas Keir Starmer has been quite successful at just kind of running over the Brits, right? And so that's interesting to note. The way to stop this, though, is to recognize where we are, because a lot of people are like, oh, let's support Polyev, or let's support PPC, or we'll go after the province. We'll get a Danielle Smith like premier in the province, and we'll fix it that way. Even I thought that. I thought maybe that would be a viable way to do it. They'll just crush me. They'll call me racist and crush me. So I think the only way to do it is to stop playing their game. But then again, there's all sorts of incentives for people to continue playing their game. Cash money for like your job, right? You work for the government. What's it? 1 in 4 people work for the government at this point in time, mm-hmm. right? So like, are you really going to say like, get the F out of here, you terrible criminals, right? Probably not. 1 in 4. That's a lot of people. 25% is a lot of people. You could win an election with only 7 or 8 more percent. How many people are married to those people? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it
creates that incentive, that incentive system to just perpetuate the machine, right?
Do you know who Fitz?
That's what we have. What is it?
Catherine Austin Fitz.
Yes. Yeah.
So the incentive that we're talking about is the red button. She says we can stop all the crime and the waste and everything. We can stop it right now. All you have to do is come up and push this red button, and nobody will, because it means that all that grift is gone. All that extra stuff is gone. The kickbacks are gone.
She has such a gravity to what she says because she was so close to so many American administrations. Like, she was one of the inside people on this. So the fact that she's not getting and garnering more views on this is shocking. Like, that should be leading mainstream outlets. If we actually had journalism and it wasn't just, bullshit from the regime to program you with.
Yep. Yeah.
But speaking of Canada for a moment, just to kind of focus back in on Canada.
Sure.
You're seeing people like the Conservative Party. Now, for me, and I don't imagine you were quite shocked when Chris d'Entremont crossed over, people are hypothesizing about his personal reasons, but at the end of the day, these people are taking orders. There's powerful figures.
He's a liberal.
And I bet you, that's right. I bet you they're framing it to these people, even in the provincial governments. I bet you they're saying, look, guys, this is a very precarious geopolitical moment. We have Trump boogeyman. He's disassembled globalization. In order for us to maintain Canada, we all have to get on board and put the partisanship aside, and you guys have to sell this message. And that's what I see. Because when I see, like, it's funny, a lot of people were surprised that Carney kept the cabinet. It's like, of course he kept them. They penetrated that cabinet. He needs them. So much so that Sean Fraser, and I equated to the Godfather, like, he left, he got out.
Yeah, he wasn't going to come back. Yeah.
They pulled him back in, right? It's like, as soon as I get out, they pull me back in. And then I look at him getting a bit of scrutiny from Andrew Lawton in Parliament, and the dude looked like he was squirming in his skin. If you watch that interaction with the sound off, man, you could just see, it's like, oh my God, not only is he lying and presenting this, and he knows the detriment, it's like he's profoundly aware of how rotten it is that he's doing it, because you could see the guilt in his demeanor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think that the politicians who are currently running this grift, like, I don't think Catherine McKenna feels bad about the missing receipts. I don't think that what's her face, Chrystia Freeland, feels bad about the deficits we're running. I don't think Champagne feels bad about pretending that investing in Canada is not spending, right? Like, you can't invest in a stock if you're broke to the tune of trillions of dollars, right? Like, that's not responsible.
That I should qualify too. I didn't mean bad as much as guilty. They look guilty. That's a much better and more apt adjective to say what I was trying to say.
Indeed. Yeah, they look like you've walked into the room and they look like they've done something, and the cookie jar is akimbo, and they've got cookie crumbs, and it's like, yeah, I've sussed out what you've done, like, but nothing's going to happen, and that's the unfortunate part. Like, for COVID, nothing happened. We had mayors and politicians saying this is a safe and effective, medically safe and effective. These people were pharmacare billboards, a lot of them pushing and like pumping money into this thing for your safety, and everybody lost their ever-loving minds, and absolutely not one person has been held accountable. Like, remember Dr. David Martin, 2 first names, David Martin. He's talking about how the nanoparticles, the nanoparticle juice, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the medium for delivery of the spike protein, whatever it is. And Justin Trudeau's making tons of money on it. And he's like, I haven't been sued, and I've been going around talking about this, and Nothing happened. And so like, it's really, really hard for your regular everyday person. It's much easier to believe that there has been no criminality, and that's why we don't see anybody arrested. Everything's fine, and that's why everything's going on as normal. I'm going to work. Everything's fine. You know, I got to pay my mortgage. I got to do this. I got to do that. Everything's fine. Much easier to look at life like that than it is to be like, so why are these criminals getting away with everything every day? And why doesn't anybody hold them accountable? Why is that really practically, from a practical point of view? Isn't this a crime, what they've done? I can't tell people. They're trying to shut us, like they're trying to shut me down with my skeptical eyebrows. And we've got public servants pushing pharmaceutical products. No problem. That's fine. We've got like CFIA thugs taking property, shooting ostriches in the dead of night. No problems. That's not criminal. But you're going to jail, Mark, because you're very skeptical about this budget. Okay. Super good, Canada.
It's absolutely wild, man. I agree with all of that entirely. So I'm going to go through the questions here. We got a few good ones, and I want to appeal to everyone watching. If you guys, as Mark was saying, we're all deboosted on here. Anyone who's trying to analyze this and interpret it and be sincere and ask hard questions, like, you know, scrutinize our public servants a little bit, even if you do it with a flair of humor, it doesn't matter. You're still going to be deboosted. They have certain viewpoints that they let get through and other ones they don't. So if you guys can share this, repost it, quote share it, ask other people to share it, it's immensely appreciated. And again, get over there and follow Mark. Mark does a show pretty much every day. He does excellent content, very similar to the stuff I talk about. And I'm definitely going to have him on to talk again. So with that said, I'm going to go through some of these questions here, and we're both going to answer them. Let's see here. So first of all, we get a compliment. Great episode, gentlemen, from Mr. Pam and Ascari. We'll take that, Pam.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much, brother. So here we got Pam. And Mark, would you say that 1913 was the beginning of the end for the U.S. Federal Reserve, elected senators, income tax amendment?
Yeah, I think it's complicated. Like, I think that people tried to get out from under the yoke of what they saw as the crown, but I think it was probably different. Maybe they didn't know what they were kind of getting out from under the yoke of, and so these people got out from under the yoke of the crown, kind of, because they were Masons. Like George Washington was a Mason, right? It's all the early construction of the United States was all based on Masonic symbology and stuff, right? Like that's not crazy, and so they got out from under one group to introduce them to another group. By the 1800s, the crown had already kind of basically bought access again. So like when people, and as we were talking about earlier, if we got control of Canada, we got control of Ontario, right? If we got control of a place, it wouldn't last long before my inner circle was infiltrated by somebody saying, hey, you know, Mark's not listening to you enough, and you could be more powerful. And like pretty soon you're going to get a Brutus, and it's easier for the public, and it's easier for the people who are taking control, for the public not to perceive any change, right? Like, oh, it's still that George Washington, freedom, you know, USA, everything's fine. But it's not, right? And it's the same thing happening here. And so like 1913 was the beginning of it's like Kickstarter. So like in 1913, those leaders had goals. And just like Justin Trudeau in 2015 had goals. And he was here to do certain things. And once he ticked off those goals, he's done. He had stretch goals too. So the purpose of the leadership in 1913 was to get access to the taxpayer piggy bank and be able to, quote, loan money to the government. This does a couple of things. The government can then borrow money, and then you have direct access to taxpayers' money in the future. Because when you borrow money, you're saying, I'm going to pay this money back over a period of time. And so the taxpayer borrows $1 billion in 1913, and then in 1924, you're getting interest payments on that $1 billion for the Fed. You see what I'm saying? So there's they then use that money to that income that they've created to fund further wet works against the United States, against whatever. And then that funds their next 10 years, right? And they've got funding. Like they've got all sorts of funding. Money is money is a joke to them. Money is just, it's a joke. They don't care about money. They have a whole other currency, and we can get into that in another episode, I think. But it's not just 1913. It's just a way. 1913 was a way for the powers that be to regain control that they had previously lost, and access to the slaves, the wage slaves, and that's just, yeah. I don't know. It was a change, but I don't know the end of the U.S. The U.S. is being milked. The U.S. is a big bank, and the robbers are in robbing the bank, and the police officers walk up and they talk to the police officers at the top of the bank, and the police officers at the top of the bank, who are also robbers, just dressed as police officers, say everything's fine. And so the police officers who arrived at this bank say, okay, everything's fine, and we don't do anything to stop anything. So that's what's going on.
Yeah, the whole machine just continues to perpetuate itself, and the money is used to control the slaves. That's, think of it as a company store. Again, the nations aren't nations as much as commerce districts. You're not so much a citizen as much as an indentured employee to this corporate entity, right?
An economic
and
cog.
That's 100%, and that's just the nature of fiat currency. And the way they passed the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, because there was a lot of people against it, on December 23rd, when the majority of Congress was home with their families. Plus Woodrow Wilson, they took advantage of him. He didn't have a sharp mind at the time, and that's how it works, right? We're all we're so conditioned that we're born into these psyops, and we accept them. We don't critically analyze them, because then someone will utilize conspiracy theorist as a pejorative and call you a crackpot theorist.
I don't care anymore. But
you have to, dude. If you're going to criticize it in any way, you have to be cool with that. Most people think I'm batshit, but I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just calling it like I see it. Well, let's see what else we got here for questions. We got another compliment. Big fan, JP. Love the conversation. My sense is many more folks are awakening to the reality of the uniparty. The big question is how do we tackle it? People stop voting. Well, that's kind of relevant to what we were saying. You're of a firm mind that it's very unlikely we could change this by voting. I don't trust the integrity of the elections. I don't trust the integrity of either establishment parties. And the whole system it's seemingly so systemically corrupt. And the Westminster parliamentary system provides them with a lot of extra assurances that the people will never get a say with our elected Senate, elected for life. It's already been, it's heavily Trudeau appointees, 90%. The judiciary, provincially and federally, is stacked solid with radical activists. So, I mean, how do you even approach something like this pragmatically to mitigate what's occurring?
So a couple of a couple of ways. I look hyper local when I think of how to counter what's going on, because two things. You have to, if you're going to build something, if you're going to do something to counter this, expect to do it for at least 10 years. Expect to be building it for at least 10 years, like building community and things like that, building a way to counter it. And be aware of the game you're entering. You're going to get smeared. You're going to get lambasted. Your reputation's going to be dragged through the mud. People are going to, think of what happened to Nigel Farage up until he's now poised to be the next prime minister, right? Think of the way people treated him as a matter of course. That's what any successful operation looks like. And it will take 10 to 15 to 20 years to turn back what's going on. And you have to be super successful, because that would be unbelievable if it worked in 10 years or 15 years, honestly. So my advice, the way to insulate yourself from all of this, is to play games. And by play games, I mean focus on things that are important to you. Build your own network, build your own, there are a lot of people out there who say, call your MP, get involved in politics, do this, do that, do blah, 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 blah. And I don't think that's the way to do it. You need to, and I mean, pay attention to the laws, pay attention to how they're trying to screw you. Don't put your head in the sand and ignore it. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's best illustrated in a story. So I was working in children's mental health, and I got a promotion. And previously, my job had access to a fridge and a whole bunch of a kettle, a microwave, these basic things. And the job that I was moving to, so I worked in a house, and then I was moving to a classroom. And so I moved into the classroom, as the classroom worker. And I wanted a kitchen. And they had a kitchen in the back, but it was a pain in the ass, and I couldn't get there for lunch at the right time. I was like, listen, I've got some needs here. I'm going to do this. So I made my classroom into what I needed, and I didn't ask anybody. I just did it. I wasn't going to my boss to be like, hey, can I do this? Because I'm pretty sure, well, when she found out, she was pissed off. But then I got the parents on my side. So they were like, oh, you can't take the microwave out of there. Joey uses it. I was like, yeah, think of Joey. Like we can't mess Joey's lunch up, man. So it worked out fine. I got my breakfast nook, but you have to take care of yourself, and you don't have to ask permission to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You have to do the things that make sense and matter for you and your family. You have to insulate your family. Another example, during COVID, I was coaching people on how to tell the school boards where they were to go F themselves about the masks, because it was way easier than anybody thought. And so like I was talking about it on my show, and people were contacting me and sending me like, do I need to get a lawyer? How do we do this? I was like, no, you don't need a lawyer. All you need is to send this. And when they send back that they don't want to do it, you say, thank you for telling me you don't want to do it. Do it anyway. And then they'll do it. And 15, 20 people I helped with like that. And so there was like one or two hard cases where I was like, let's call them. Let's get them on a 3-way call. And it was fantastic. It was super fun. You just have to fight. You just have to stand up for yourself and say, I'm not going to effing go do that. Like, that is the most effective way to counter this. You say no. You say, I'm not going to put your mask on. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to enroll in your digital ID. I'm not going to listen to this drag queen in this library. It's not happening. I'm not going to do that. I'm not participating in your madness. And some people say, like, call it out, right? Like, if you call it out, you are exposing yourself to, they want you to call it out, because if you call it out, they'll say, oh, you're being bigoted. You're the problem. It's like, if you say anything bad against one group or another, you're an Islamophobic or anti-Semite. But then instead of examining the criticism, like, we don't want this call to prayer in our Christian neighborhood here. Instead of examining the criticism, they make you the problem by saying you're Islamophobic. And so same thing applies when you go into a situation and you say, this library shouldn't have the drag queens for the kids. Of course that's correct. Of course that's a sane position to take. And they're going to use, and they already have used this in Calgary against pastors, to put you in jail, to make an example of you, to prevent other people from speaking out. So you find other ways to subvert their nonsense, protect yourself and the people that you care about, and stand up for them and help them say no. That's the best way to counter this, because if everybody just stands up and goes, I don't think so, then they lose.
100%. I agree with that. I frequently say they derive their authority from our compliance, and only from our compliance. The minute we say we're not playing this game, it's
COVID.
over.
Look, we won COVID, and it burns them now. It burns them that we just said no. That's the way to win. That's the way to win against this. Now, that's not the way to turn back the political nightmare that we're living through, unfortunately. That's a longer process. Yeah, that's. But if you want to have a happy life and a life where you are living your most self-actualized life, not to say don't pay attention to politics, dodge and weave politics, right? Like, pay attention to it like a boxer, right? Like, you're getting out of the way. That's the best way.
I think right now people say to me frequently, because I speak to a lot of these issues, and they'll say, oh, well, you're a big black pill. Like, you know what I mean? You're a doomsayer. It's like, no, I'm not. The way I look at it, if we're going to pragmatically endeavor to resolve anything, we have to know how far the rot lies. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're going to lance a boil, you have to know how far that infection is. Mm-hmm. And I think in Canada, it's to its core. It's to its absolute structural, foundational core, everything. And like what you were saying earlier in the conversation, it was really, really relevant. Like, we're seeing this online ecosystem now, for the conservatives become just as disingenuous as the CBC is for the liberals.
Sure are.
And it's perpetuating the uniparty. We're seeing disingenuous shill types. All they do, there's not a modicum of scrutiny. They're not even feigning impartiality. They're just like worshipping their leader, and they're culture war grifting. And that's what sees us in the algorithm. Mm-hmm. So it's like that process is amplified naturally by the design of these algorithms. And I mean, people just need to wake up. That's what I realized this. And again, I supported Pierre Poilievre at one time. I realized about a few months prior to the election that, okay, not only like once you see this thing, I often say you can't unsee it. And you become hyper aware. Oh my God, this is bullshit. Everything, what's real? And when you keep going down that rabbit hole, I warn people, like, I'm telling you, be prepared, because you can't unsee this, and you become obsessed. You get sucked into it.
It's super like, good, man. Like, I love it. I love it. I often think to myself, now that I know this truth, to this almost self-evident truth, to be truthful, to be accurate. Like, there are 4 lights. There's 2 oranges on this table. If there were 2 oranges, right? Like, now that I know this, how can I use this? Because other people don't know this, or they behave as if they don't know this. So how do I know this? Have you seen The World Is Not Real? It is people who take DMT and they look at the red lasers and the green lasers. Have you seen this?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. It's like a 4-minute documentary. There's a 45-minute documentary that's on the same thing, but it's actually at the top of CanadaReport.co right now. So if you go to CanadaReport.co, it's the top headline is, what does it say? Sorry, I'm just going to look. Reality isn't real. And so I've talked about it before, and it is basically, like matrix code. Like scrolling matrix code with recognizable letters and numbers, matrix code. These guys took DMT and they can see in the layers, in the red lasers, the matrix code. Oh, that didn't reset it at all. The matrix code. And they say that, the world it's a simulation. It's all a simulation. And yeah, man, like, it's certainly something to think about. So it's one of those things where the more I read, when you start trying to find out what is real, like what's really real. No, that's ridiculous. I'm trying to get my focus back here. What's really real, the more you find out, like, absolutely nothing. Like, there isn't anything.
Yeah, so some of the DMT, I was aware of certain experiments where they would, where everyone relays that they were talking to a similar entity, the clockwork elves, people call them, and stuff. That there was now I don't know about the validity of this. This sounds more like a myth, but that they've done studies where they've given people messages. And sent them with messages for the clockwork elves. And then they sent other people on a DMT trip to retrieve the messages.
Interesting.
And there was like varying success. I've heard a lot of stuff about that. Also with ketamine, I was watching a gentleman that was on Tucker Carlson. He's saying all these big tech guys are into ketamine. And when they're in these K-holes, when they're in these ketamine trips, they can actually see that its technology is becoming conscious. Like, we are mankind's whole premise in their warped transhumanist vision is to give birth to AI. And there's some dark stuff with all of it. That's for sure. Weird. And again, man, you just really don't know where to begin with it. Honestly, it's so convoluted. I often warn people, when you start to go down the rabbit hole, just know you might not like what you see. It's not as it seems. That's for sure. Yeah.
It's certainly interesting. I had lots of people, and I mean, when you talk every day about things, people push back, and it's great. I enjoy the conversations with people. And a lot of times the pushback is, you don't know enough about this topic that you're talking about. Please just watch this video or something like that. And you think this is, there's nothing to it. I'll watch this video. And it opens up a whole thing and you're like, whoa, I did not expect this to go in this direction. And then all of a sudden you're like, maybe, it's certainly very plausible. You make a good case. And like, I'm not claiming to know the truth. But it's like finding out more information. Like, you find out a man beat up another man, and immediately you're like, well, the man who got beat up, maybe the first guy was wrong. But the more information you get, the thing happened in man A's, the first guy's kitchen at 3 a.m. Well, okay, now maybe man B deserved to get beat up. You know what I mean? The more information I have, now it casts a different light. And so, yeah, it is when you find out about all the crazy stuff. And I mean, again, like after COVID, when you read the history books and they say all of the stuff that our newspapers were saying during COVID, I know that was totally bullshit. Like, what they were saying in the newspapers was mostly bullshit. And so I have this critical eye of newspapers from days gone by, or the history of days gone by, because did what happened to our newspapers happen to the history books? And I think, oh yeah. And so like, what's real? Whew, man,
I
it's a
have
long story.
those exact same concerns, and history is written by the winners always. As Napoleon, I believe it was that initially said that, who was
Yeah.
profoundly aware of it. So I mean,
Apparently he was very tall. Apparently
yeah,
Napoleon was very tall for the time.
he
Who
was
knew?
he was above average. That's
Yeah,
the
right?
thing, right? Yeah, it just goes
Everything.
to show our
Nothing's true.
susceptibility, right? And we're born into this world, and our presuppositions are as they are, and maybe they're not. You know what I mean? Like really, and that's what's seemingly happening broadly. I've heard people say that we're coming into the post-enlightenment. We're starting to realize that pure rationality has its limitations. I'm not going to take it in that direction. It's far too long. But I very much enjoyed this conversation, Mark. I'd love for you to come back sometime and talk to us again.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thanks for having
I
me on.
want you to let everyone know where to find you. Plug all of your stuff.
Yeah, great. If you want to watch the show, come over to CanadaPoly.com. Everywhere else, if you try and join my show on Spotify, they have been investigating for the last month why a lot of people who try and join the subscription on my Spotify just can't. The error shows up. It says, we cannot do this. And Spotify apparently doesn't see it. And I said, no, that's not. I run e-commerce stores. I know. Anyway, come to CanadaPoly.com if you want to check that out. I also built, and I'm going to use it to plug Linkroll here too. I built the old Reddit algorithm. So Reddit used to be just a link aggregator for board office workers. That's what Reddit started out as fundamentally. And I built it again, and it is basically up down. The algorithm doesn't have any kind of censorship. It is pure meritocracy of upvotes and downvotes. So go drop a link, discuss the link. It is there to be used, and I hope people use it. It doesn't have any emails yet. This is like the first week of this website, so it doesn't have any emails or anything like that. But it's the old Reddit. It is Reddit stripped down with the original 10 subreddits, and it should work a treat. So I've been using it. It's cool. It's a cool interface. You should check it out if you have time or you're bored and you want to see some fun links. And what else? Canada Report, I guess, if you're interested in documentaries and things. Canada Report is like Drudge Report. So it's got like just links in order plus documentaries that I'm watching. Anyway, regardless, thanks for having me on, JP. And
Mark, I'm telling you, man, I profusely enjoyed this. I could go another few hours. So
yeah, for real. Feels like we're just getting started.
That's right. We're just getting into the good stuff.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us. And I want to thank all the viewers. And just again, I want to appeal one more time. If everyone can share this, I get most of my views after the live broadcast. So it's very beneficial for us. And thanks for coming out, guys. My name's JP Berg. This is Dumb the Wiser.